covering all your favorite parts of the 50-yard fight. This is the Inside the Walls podcast with Zach Heilman and Jim Mernier.
Welcoming in fans of the 50-yard fight. This is the Inside the Walls podcast, bringing you our latest episode of NAL Rebound. Zach Heilman in here, as always, to kick things off, as we're going to have a kind of maybe breakneck speed pace for this one, just because it's one game, but still plenty to discuss, I think, and a lot of material that will impact maybe some things you're looking forward to in next week's slate of contests that will be very vital now that we're hitting the middle point or closer to the middle point of the season. And we had a lot of roster changes, so we'll talk about a lot of those new roster changes in Orlando, as well as a very good defensive performance. I'll bring on in, of course, my co-host here while we're at it, good buddy, the pal, the man over there in Jacksonville, Jim Mernier. Jim, welcome aboard. I do want to say to start, sorry about the Iceman. I know that was a very well contested series from what I understand, but hey, sometimes things don't break. But otherwise, you still got the Sharks coming up into town next week.
Yay.
At least you get to drown that away, seeing them play at ViStar Memorial against the Empire.
Hey, it just makes, hard-fought loss by my local club here. It was a fun year, and now I get to focus 100% of my energy just on the Jacksonville Sharks and the National Arena League. So it wasn't the last time I've left that building, because I still have a couple more visits coming up here in the next couple of weeks, especially this weekend, which I think we're kind of, us on the podcast are calling it Rivalry Weekend.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. Yeah.
So we got big three potential rivalry games this weekend. But we got to look back at last week. This is Rebound, episode 102, week 6. Only one game, but yeah, overall, it was a intriguing weekend. It's kind of nice, a little afternoon action, a little matinee. Game's over. The outcome was kind of different than I thought what it was going to be, but I did get the pick right.
You did.
So I am tied with Zach again. Zach gets one game lead, and I come back the next week and tie it. So it's fun. Week 6 was, you could say, chemistry ruined a lot of the things, but at the same time, one team was very prepared. So, yeah, kind of hard to break down the week's action when we only have one game.
Right. I mean, we'll dive in a little bit deeper than that surface level, because I think you're absolutely right. Some of the elements that in my pick that I thought was going to show up for this week for Orlando did not. And we're going to definitely break down a little bit as to what you and I saw on there, what the Predators can look to do. Also injury questions and discussion on, the QB situation, because Joseph Hess did go out with an injury and had to be replaced with Jeffrey Legri by the end. And just talk, I think, the Cobras defense. We need to give them a little more credit. We'll discuss all this in just a second. Let's pop up the standings really quick while we're discussing some things. So, again, one game this week, but it does kind of make things a little more, as usual, we talk about muckier. As you can tell, not too much separation between 2 through 7. The Gunslingers, though, they still keep that one game, really 2-game advantage over the Cobras with that tiebreaker from earlier in the year. But the Cobras, what they do here, they solidify themselves keeping right now 1-game presence over the rest of the middle of the pack with the Sharks and the Mustangs. The Predators sink down to 7. That's from tiebreakers in particular. Remember, they did lose the Empire earlier this year. Warbirds did beat the Empire. They haven't played, the Predators haven't played the Warbirds as of yet. So some of those things are going to be coming to fruition pretty soon. But the Preds, with that negative 87 point differential, a lot of that comes from Albany in this past game. That helps sink them as well. But they're not anywhere close to out of it. Clearly, we know about the talent on this roster, but as we'll dive into a second, they just got to get things in gear a little bit sooner in a few aspects, because everyone else is stocking up, including the Empire just above them.
Yeah, it's very early in the season. When you look at the standings right now, one game is the separation between 4 seed and the 7 seed. As everyone knows, as I've mentioned on this show multiple times, that the 4 seed is the champion of the muck, and your reward is the number 1 seed, which currently is the Gunslingers. And the NAL did release some standings, and I look at it, I get kind of aggravated because it's inaccurate. They just post it. Tiebreakers do fall in effect. Warbirds have a tiebreaker over the Empire, and Empire have the tiebreaker of the Predators. People said, why? Well, what about the Predators? Well, the Predators fall because of the if there was a three-way tie, the Predators would have been the Warbirds, and if that is that case, if it's a three-way tie like three-way like excuse me, speak English, Jim. If it was a three-way tie like that, with the Predators being the Warbirds and Warbirds being the Empire and the Empire being the Predators, it comes down to point differential, and then Albany would be sixth or be fifth because they're plus 25. They have the better point differential. Jacksonville has the head to head over Mustangs. That's what gets them to three over the four. And of course, how competitive this league is. Two games separate the home field advantage, and that's a two seed, and three games separate from the seven to the one. So there's a lot of football to be played here. Week 6, 4 games in. For the fans in San Antonio, 4-0. It's nice being chilled. But the Cobras did keep up with you guys. They are technically a game back, but mathematically they're a game and a half. You have that crucial tiebreaker at from the week 1 matchup. So pivotal matchup coming up in a few weeks when San Antonio travels to Carolina. So that would be intriguing if Carolina does get that one. And then there's the tiebreaker scenarios thrown out the window. And it's just based on overall point differential after that. So intriguing standings right now to start the year. Just 7 games. We've seen these brackets change throughout weekly. But
Hmm.
now I want to say the third consecutive weekend where the top 4 didn't change. So right now, if you're Fayetteville fans, you're above the line. You are the champions of the muck. If you're the Warbirds, you're the first one outside looking in. But then again, it's only week 6, and there's a lot of football to be played in the National Arena League.
Yeah, plenty of time. I will. My only thing I will kind of look at on this, and again, this is kind of right now. I would almost say maybe being a little critical on things to be worried about, but 1-3, it still is possible to catch up. But if we're talking tiebreakers, if you're in the Orlando Predators, I'm looking at that negative 87 point differential right now. Not saying that matters at the moment. There's still a lot of season left, but if you are not able to make some of that point differential back, say the season doesn't go as we expect, you aren't getting wins there, that could be a make or break given how the season's going. So something I think to watch out for. Tiebreakers to me and you are going to be vital later in the year, but stuff like this, when you're getting behind the 8 ball right now, can affect things down the line. Just got to be getting things a little bit more in order, because you take losses like you did last week and earlier in the year against the Empire. That stuff does come back to bite you in close seasons like this.
Yes, and we saw it 2 years ago when we had that almost that three-way potential tie at the end of the year, where it came down to point differential to whoever entered the playoffs. But Carolina that year found a way to pull it off at the very end to win the game. Where they would have lost, Jacksonville would have got it because their point differential was minus 17, while Carolina was like minus 34, and New Jersey was like minus 45. So that was the third overall tiebreaker. So it does happen. But again, it's too early in the season. Right now, they're 1-3, yes, but they're only a game back of Fayetteville. And unfortunately for them, for Orlando, they're technically a game and a half behind Fayetteville because Fayetteville has the head-to-head tiebreaker over them
Right.
so far this year. So, tie. That's one thing you look at the standings in any sport. Man, we're 2 games back, we're game back, but you remember tiebreakers. They are the hidden number behind a lot of these races that turn out to be the thorn in someone's playoff hopes. It's not like Major League Baseball where you have an extra game being played for a tiebreaker, because they don't do tiebreakers in Major League Baseball. They just play the extra game 163. But not here in NAL. It's all about tiebreaker. But it's way too early to look at the playoff
Yeah.
bracket. But it's week 6. We got 11 more weeks until the postseason. But it will start to form. You'll start to see the teams separate from the pack, and you'll see the 3 or 4 teams that will be battling for that muck position as the season progresses.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's dive into this specific contest anyway. We've already talked about, I think, where their standings and things are going to be affected right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, Jim, you hinted at this best as we pull up the highlight reel from this week. A lot of things I thought hung on. You brought up in game day that a lot of it hinged on, I think, the chemistry, as you talked about, the short-term turnaround. They did have that a little bit over a week to get ready to go with a lot of their talent. But both of us also said, especially QB play was going to be massive for this contest. Can Joseph Hess repeat what he did against Jacksonville? And I think what I saw out of Hess a lot of was, I think he's doing a lot what Malik Henry was doing in his beginning year in the NAL.
Mm-hmm.
He's looking for the deep shot, like kill shots in a lot of these passes. Isn't used to keeping the chain just moving, thinks that they're going to be open, because there were a lot of overthrows in this contest. And I think there were a lot of risks after you wouldn't get the overthrows landing. Mike Green feasted on Sunday off of interceptions and had himself a day. I actually think he might end up as the defensive player of the week thanks to that performance. But a lot of it, I think, Hess trying to take a few more risks downfield, thought he could get guys like Clarence Williams, who just got jacked up on that play, by the way, if you're watching the YouTube version. Weird play call, I thought, and some weird play calls, period, throughout this one on Orlando's side. How do you digest this, Jim? Chemistry's big, but I think some people on stream said this best. You had kill shot passes, there were run attempts, which is Damon Ware we're talking about, or that very interesting trick play that I just found that interesting that you were trying to do that on such a short term with basically half a new roster or so, maybe third to be a little less generous coming in on. I'll give a leverage with maybe a week and a half to get ready.
Well, week and a half, and they were trying to, spark something in Orlando. One of the things I noticed in this game is, like, we look at Orlando in the past. You see Clarence Williams, you see Prince Shinola, you see Rob Jones, and the balls being, as what you mentioned, diversify the portfolio. This game, there was none of that. It was, where's Prince? Throw the ball to Prince. And Carolina, give them credit, they knew how to play Orlando. They're like, we just played this exact same team 2 weeks ago. They knew who the guy was going to get the ball. And besides the two incredible kick returns that Prince did in one or two couple possessions during the game, Carolina shut down that whole entire offense. As what I mentioned before, which I've gotten praise from coaches when I say the Darius Prince rule. Coach Fuller did the Darius Prince rule and then doubled down on it. Like, Veal was everywhere. Like, Zach, the one-man band Brown, was destroying Orlando's offensive line.
I mean, you're talking about the run game for the Cobras. The Cobras basically operated on turnovers, and when Malik Henry couldn't really get hot for half of this contest, we're going to run the ball, deep in your own territory. I mean, Kevin Voiles and Zach Brown feasted on Sunday. Like,
Correct.
more so than you even expect out of an arena contest. Just short yardage, pummeling the offensive three man in front of you, just for some quick touchdowns when you get down there, or off turnovers.
Yeah. What was exciting about this game is how it started.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Jesus, kick return. Like, Darius Prince is like, oh, hold my beer, Carolina. Like, I'm going to show you how everything's going to go. He returns the kick. Evan Smith is like, oh, Darius Prince. No. You hold my beer. I'm going to show you. Adam Smith takes it to the house. And Darius Prince is like, did you just call me out again? Let me do this again. Like, it started off like, oh, this is going to be a back and forth, an awesome affair. And then after, I think Dylan Barnos hit a deuce early in the game, and that was it for Orlando. It was like they couldn't answer Carolina ever from then on. But one thing that you look at the Carolina, I wish we had stats here. They're kind of behind giving out stats, but they will be updated pretty soon from the people I've talked to. Just watching the game and watching the highlights and having conversations with the people on our Discord page, Carolina's running game was superior in this game.
Oh,
Like
yes.
every time they handed the ball off to Zach Brown, he was getting 3 or 4 yards a pop, and he broke a couple in the game. And one thing I look at it, you look at any arena game, especially on Orlando's side, they have so many new key pieces that just got added to the team. It's going to take time for them to gel. And I mentioned last week that it's going to come down to the quarterback. Joseph has had an incredible game against Jacksonville. One thing about quarterbacks, I don't care what quarterback you are, when you change half their team during a week, the chemistry that they just built with those 3 receivers or 4 receivers they had on the roster goes away. Because who's back that Joseph Hess hasn't thrown to? Lonnie Outlaw. Who's back or who's addition? Darius Prince. Who became MIA in the game? Rob Jones, Clarence Williams, Prince Shanola. It's going to take time and chemistry for that. But for Orlando, you look at the record. They're 1-3. Their 3 losses that they have so far this year have not looked so good. They have been pretty much dominated in all 3 losses they have in this game. Kind of ironic. One of those losses, half the players are on their team now. But it's still early in this game, and one thing I want to you can point many fingers to Albany what they were doing, or excuse me, with Carolina what they were doing that was aggravating Orlando. Joseph Hess was not having the clean pocket. He was
No.
getting blitzed. He was getting flustered. He was running out of the pocket. There was some play there. There was a play towards the game was already decided, but you can tell Legray does a little bootleg to the left and does a Superman to the end zone and just gets nailed.
That's in the highlights, actually. The
It's
one you're talking
it was in
about.
the highlights.
Mhm.
That just sums up the game. Like it was just like Carolina came to play. They were a more prepared team because they were put together. There's no major changes. The stars of Carolina shined. Adam Smith shined. Lance Evans had some great catches in this game, and of course you can say early right now the Carolina Cobras MVP Zach Brown had probably his best game of the year. He clearly was the motivation, and also Malik Henry was not making dumb mistakes. He was making smart decisions, and he was nickel and dime the field because he didn't really need to do anything because Carolina's defense was getting into pivotal 3 and outs or 4 and outs, getting into pivotal turnovers where Carolina's being set up in short fields. And what Carolina was doing that Orlando wasn't, Carolina was capitalizing on touchdowns, and Orlando was not. And when you go -3 in possessions with a -2 turnover ratio, your chances of winning an arena football game are about as good as me winning the multi-billion-dollar lotto. And when that ever happens, it's not going to happen. So
I
yeah,
I think I will call Malik Henry's day average because there were turnovers that there are a few possessions I would think around the mid second quarter. I think was kind of where you were seeing a lot of what was going to be the make or break point for how this game would turn out because you saw a few turnovers exchanged between both sides. Hess would have a pick, Malik would throw a pick. And I'm pretty certain, yes, we don't have the stats, but they're recalling at least 2 interceptions that Henry threw that I am very much going, yeah, you gotta settle down, young man. At least, or it was uncharacteristic. And credit, that isn't too surprising given that the Preds do have the offensive talent. I mean, or defensive talent. I'll be honest with you, a lot of points here that the Preds gave up was just off of offensive incompetency in their own part. We're talking, like I said, Mike Green's own pick 6 that, helped sway things right out of the gate. This one actually on the screen right now. Funny enough, we're talking about like Mike Green himself was a one-man wrecking crew that kind of just changed the course of how this one was going anyhow in the second half. And then it just kept spiraling out of control from there. Defensively, the Preds, those pieces worked out really well. That's not the problem side. You got to get everything going on the opposite side with a quarterback question now, I think even more so because as we saw, Joseph Hess knocked out of the game second half. Jeffrey Legre, not much, he's back up right now for a reason in Orlando. He definitely needs a little bit of time. Status of Hess is in question, and I do wonder, if the Preds are very much transaction happy right now. I mean, do you look again at the free agency to go for another option because you have all these weapons, but you do need someone that I think is a little more, let's just say he's been around the block a little more than I think the two options that might be currently available.
Well, they can because it's the arena game's going to happen. We've seen it just recently happen just a couple days ago with with Orlando. Um, but I think you need it. Joseph Hess is a good quarterback. He had a great game against Jacksonville, and he's learning. I just think with all the new additions on the team, just messed up team chemistry, and that will take time to build. They got a week, 2 weeks. They got a bye week this week, so they got 2 weeks until they take West Texas on back home in Amway. If Hess is healthy, I say stick with him for one more week, see how he is, and if he goes out against West Texas and puts up a performance like he did against Jacksonville, I think he's fine. If he goes out there and does a performance like he did against Carolina and the game against Albany a couple weeks ago, then yes, I think they may have to go to the free agent market if trying to find them an addition. But one of the greatest comments I've heard about, not greatest, but one of the comments I heard this weekend about this game sums up some of the greatest teams that we've ever seen assembled in professional sports, like the Lakers back in 2010, where they had Gary Payton and Karl Malone with Kobe and Shaq. People say, oh, this is going to be an unstoppable team. And what happened? They struggled most of the year, finally got hot at the end, made the playoffs. So I see that vividly is going to happen to this team. And you see that a lot of teams in the NFL who have superstar lineups, they're very sluggish when they first get it together. And as the season progresses, they'll get better and better. For instance, I think Orlando in about 5 weeks' time, we're going to have a different conversation about them because I think they'll be more gel. I think they'll be better. Honestly, I think Hess is still their guy. He is a promising quarterback. I like what he does. He just had a bad game, and that goes to the credit to the Cobras and the statement they made this weekend to the National Arena League and to the Orlando Predators. And the first thing is to go on the side of the Cobras. They're 3-1, and their only loss is by 1 point to the undefeated San Antonio Gunslingers. I think Orlando made a statement this weekend, or excuse me, Carolina made a statement this weekend like, we're just as good as San Antonio. We want our rematch against San Antonio because right now, based on the games we have seen, Carolina and San Antonio are 1A, 1B. Because most of the people I've seen in the pick'ems this weekend picked that Orlando's going to go in here and walk away or win this game. Carolina shut up a lot of people this weekend by that poor performance. And the question is, do they belong in the same conversation with the San Antonio Gunslingers at this point this year?
I mean, I think that they're in the same vein because of the fact that right now you're having both sides of the ball play at a consistently high, all three phases actually, not even both, because TC Stevens has been right now one of the elite kickers in this league, is a vital weapon. You know, maybe didn't have as much of an impact with this one, but, you know, was really getting it off the nets and was causing some problems for, you know, at least it makes the returns a little more challenging for those guys to bounce it off, to get a bar ball. You know, that stuff did happen during this game. So, you know, I think that right now you do put them up there with the Gunslingers. It's a 2-point loss that they had week one with a roster that had a different starting quarterback to kind of lead things off. And I think and also the fact that Zach Brown wasn't playing week one. They've been retooling it where the more he's gotten involved in the gameplay, the more he's been getting back to his normal self. This one, I think, like you're talking, breakout game for him, even more so than it usually is as a runner. And that's what you need to see. You know, I think, like I said, Malik Henry, he's a good fit for this offense too. Him and Fuller know exactly what they want to do. Just got to calm down on the turnovers, but defensively, the Cobras can keep up with anyone right now in the NAL, and they deservedly so are 3-1 for very much reason. You know, absolutely, it's been great performances. You know, James Fuller's done a great job with that roster, even with some of the losses they've had to either other teams or other leagues. They're still kicking, and they're still right in the thick of it, just like last year. It's a winning program for a reason, and James Fuller is a winning coach for a very good reason.
Yeah, that's perfect statement right there about Caroline has been like we talked on our Discord page. If you guys Discord join, conversations are pretty civil at times, unless you go hashtag Phil said it first, and we understand. Uh, Carolina this year has, they narrowly escaped West Texas. Then we realized West Texas has been proven as a team. They, suffered that loss to San Antonio, but they were there last play, 2-point conversion right there would have tied the game. They've been in the games. And the games that they have won, except for the West Texas, they have won pretty impressively. Um, but one thing you look at Carolina is this whole week, the buzz was about Orlando, about the additions of Nick Hague, Darius Prince, Brandon Cisse, Dwayne Hollis, and no one was talking about Carolina. Carolina took care of business. They came at this game and did what they had to do, secure their home field, win the game, and like the good saying goes, get the wins when you can. It's not easy to win football games in any league, and they did that. This weekend, they're traveling to Fayetteville, which could be a pseudo rivalry week for the league and a possibly separation weekend, too, as the top tier teams are playing the lower tier teams in the league. So we could possibly see some little separation. But I think
Yeah.
it's a statement win for Carolina and Coach Fuller, because Carolina's now is showing that they can win consistent. This is now back-to-back years that they're showing that they could be a consistent winner, and you're telling me that they're a 2-point conversion away being undefeated, and we're talking about a 4-0 Cobra team. They're a
Right.
very solid team. They're healthy, and they got stars all over that secondary. Adam Smith is becoming their go-to guy. Zach Brown is in my opinion, the one-man band. He's the heart and soul of that team. Malik is day and night compared to last year. They have a solid team. Um, I next week's game against Fayetteville is going to be just as entertaining, in my opinion. That's going to be the Friday night game in the NAL,
That Friday
and
night game, right? How
yeah,
that's a
rare,
little
right?
weird for us, but yeah.
A Friday night game. So they are the game of the week. Carolina at Fayetteville is the Inside the Walls game of the week, and basically Friday's episode will be like a pre-game show because the very last team's game will break down is that game. So we'll be basically you can listen to us and go in the pregame there and listen to watch the game. So again, the final score in Carolina 58, Orlando 32. That's week 6 in a nutshell. Yeah, it's very intriguing. That we saw this game. We wish we can give you numbers and stats. That's why we get the highlight reel. But
Yeah, it is what it is.
overall, overall, the observation of this week for me is team chemistry dooms the Predators, and the Carolina Cobras made a bold statement to leagues like, "Hey, why not us?" Um, do I think Orlando is down and out? No, they're going to get better as the season progresses. I think I'm going to say I'm going to basically give a guarantee 3 weeks before the postseason, like week 14 of the year, we're going to have such a bottleneck in the top 5 of teams trying to make the playoffs. That's going to come down to the very last week for all 4 teams. And I think Orlando would be one of those teams in the mix. Still early, but that's my observation. I think they'll build chemistry as the season progresses. They'll get better. They need to find Prince Shinola and Clarence Williams and Lonnie Outlaw and Rob Jones in their offense. They got so many weapons. Diversify the portfolio, as Zach will say, and I think they'll be fine. I think they got 8 more games on the schedule as they have 12, same as San Antonio. Right now, if I was Orlando, try to get the 500. 6-6 could get you in the postseason. 7-5, I think can. So find a way in the next 8 games, win 6 of the 8, and you'll be right in the mix of things, in my opinion.
Yep, pretty much. Big week ahead though for the NAL. I think really big week. Again for really all over the place, but especially I think Carolina Rumble there.
Hmm.
That's coming up. Or the battle for the Carolinas. I forget which one all the time. We seem to switch it.
We we did the Carolina Rumble, the Fayetteville, and Carolina. I think they're going to do the Battle of the Carolinas, which is okay in my opinion.
One or the other. One of
Yeah,
them will win out eventually. We're going to call it the Carolina Rumble right now for these two. I mean, it's a vital game. I think right now in this time frame of the year.
mhm.
You know, we'll talk a little more at length, but
First
like,
three.
yeah, first of three matchups. So yeah, very vital.
Yeah,
But yeah, the Cobras, like I said, they get to come in. Do they solidify themselves as a 2 seed if they can get a win at home? Does Fayetteville get a win at home? That's a thing. I think that's a big question. They are currently road warriors. They're still looking to win in front of their home audience.
sure. Well, this upcoming weekend we have three big matchups, and like I said, it's a pseudo rivalry week for us. You got the Carolina Rumble between Carolina and Fayetteville on Friday night. You have the Clash of the Empires, where the Empire travel to the Jacksonville Sharks on Saturday night, and then you have the battle in Texas between San Antonio and West Texas. So, yeah, we got some three intriguing. And if you look at the standings, the top three teams are playing the teams in the lower bracket. If Jacksonville, Carolina, and San Antonio win, they're creating that separation that we like to call Separation Sunday or Separation Weekend. So yeah, there's going to be some intriguing storylines again. Watch transactions, ladies and gentlemen. You're going to have some interesting transactions that pop up throughout the week because it's nothing interesting about arena football without interesting transactions. That just like, oh, that's going to change everything. There will have some players return here in a couple of weeks that will bolster some certain teams in the league,
Yep.
and it's going to be exciting. But again, week 7 is this week and starts Friday night. So our Friday podcast will be a preseason or a pregame type of episode. But
You might
before
might
we
have to drop
leave,
that one earlier on Friday than we usually do, just to get that one out for a few more hours for you folks out there.
yes. Before we leave, yesterday or this past Sunday was Mother's Day. So I want to say
Yeah.
belated happy Mother's Day to all of our mothers out there, and to the players' mothers out there. Remember, Sunday was their day, so happy belated Mother's Day to the mothers out there, and especially to our listeners and fans as well. Hopefully, you spent time with your mothers and gave them all the attention because without them, we won't be here. Without them, we won't be covering the game that we are. So happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there.
Yes, I know my, my camera just decided to derp out for a second. No, yes, happy belated Mother's Day. I'm glad I got to give a call to my mom. I'm obviously me living out across the country doesn't help, but I did get to catch up with her, and she has a tradition every year Mother's Day. They go and her and my dad and my brother, they go and pick up a bunch of plants. They start the planting season, put a lot of new flowers, bushes around the house that they want, vegetable gardens. They restock those. So that's generally what they do. Every Mother's Day, that is her one thing she wants to do: spend time with the family and beautify the yard. What'd you do? What did your mom do for Mother's Day, Jim? Or how'd you celebrate with her?
Well, unfortunately, my mother's not with me anymore.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But
I didn't mean to bring that
it's
up
all
that
it's all
way.
right. But we have a family tradition on Mother's Day, and we continue it with my sister, with her kids. Is that basically mamas don't do jack crap on Mother's Day. They sit down and chill, and the men of the house do everything.
Hmm.
We may mess up everything, but we'll try. This year we did good. We didn't mess
Oh,
up
hey,
anything.
there you go.
Um, because we did it at the every we basically did at the end of the day. Family was so busy in the early part of the day. So we all at the end of the day we got together, spent time with my sister. It was pretty fun. We kind of did funny joke. Um, my sister cannot stand key lime pie. And it was just like, okay, she
Okay.
wants let's get some let's get some pies. She cannot stand no lemon meringue pie, not key lime, lemon meringue pie.
Okay. Okay.
And she can't stand that. And she's like, you guys bring some pies over. I'm like, okay. And I intentionally bought a lemon meringue pie, knowing she doesn't like it. I was like, I'm gonna have this all by myself. I was I was getting my country accent getting a little like I'm gonna get some yeah. And but I had an apple pie just for her. Went to Costco. I didn't realize to the fans out there and listeners out there, next time message Jim, do not go to Costco and get their apple pie. Because that thing's a size. Dude, that thing's the size of the freaking arena here in Jacksonville. It's huge. I'm gonna go buy apple pie. I'm like, this can feed about 45 people. But not the key lime. The lemon meringue pie. Lemon meringue pie was small. And funny. She goes, "You bring the pie?" I'm like, here, brought the lemon meringue pie. And she looked at me with a death stare, like she was like, she'd be like, if mom saw you do this, she'll whip you like Mom would have said thank you for the pie, wouldn't have said anything. And she goes, will you like that? I was like, yes, Mom, I will like that. And she goes, I ain't eating this. So long story short, I kind of ticked off my sister, but it was kind of a prank the whole time. She was aggravated. Then I went back in the car, which we had a cooler, and brought the apple pie back. And she goes, you're just like your dad. I was like, you mean just like our dad? Yeah, yeah. Family tradition keeps on continuing. So yeah, I was a good day with family and friends and family, a couple of friends, their friends, but it was fun. But yeah, um, again to the families out, to the mothers that are not with us today or now, continue your traditions. We did it. And we continue to my sisters. So, um, and I got myself a lemon meringue pie. No one touched it. It was just me. I was so happy. It's still in the fridge. I'm glad.
Look at
That
you.
may come back and bite me in the back in the neck, but I don't care.
You
I got it.
just ease into it.
Yeah,
Enjoy it as you can, a little bit by bit.
it's
Glad you.
expensive, so I'm going to eat the whole dang
Oh, of
thing.
course. I mean, yeah. Hey, I would be mad if you threw that away.
Yes.
I'd be waiting until next show. You said, yeah, I had to throw that. I had to throw the pie out. No, you finish it. Finish that pie.
No,
Lemon meringue's
no.
solid. It's good to your pie. Although you start with key lime, so you got me all hyped up because I love key lime.
Oh, I like key lime. I like
I was
key
about to really
lime,
rip. I was about to rip into your sister. Be like, how do you hate key lime pie?
key lime, lemon meringue, pecan, apple, blueberry, strawberry, and um, there's another one out there that's famous on
Well, I love rhubarb. Rhubarb's one of my
rhubarb.
favorites.
There we go.
Hmm.
There, I was like, there's another one that's I forgot, but yes. See, I'm a big dude, so I can't deny free food sometimes. And Thanksgiving, there's a lot of pie and cakes. I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna eat that. But yeah,
Yeah, I'm with you. Well, glad you and I got at least to enjoy Mother's Day in our own separate ways there, and to
I
either
got to harass my
honor.
sister, which was
Well, yeah,
good.
either Mother's Day in your own separate way, or make sure if you didn't already, and if you're late for Mother's Day, hey, say hi to them now
Better than
because
Father's Day.
now Father's Day coming around the corner.
Yeah,
So
Father's Day already took $400 out. Hope he's not watching. Yes, Dad, you got your golf trip.
my dad's gonna be like, hey, we can just make more ribs. That'll be great. At least that's what he'll do because he for Mother's Day that's another thing he did. And then I'm done after this. Is, he sends me a photo. And he's not he's like saying, hey, happy Mother's Day, of course, to your grandmas if you do, and I did. And he had sent one to my grandmother about a shirt he had that said "Mom's favorite," and I guess when I moved, I left a rack of ribs in the freezer back at my old place, and my brother and I were living together, so like, here, you can have the ribs. He never made them, and so my dad's like, hey, thanks for the ribs. He like sent me that. I'm like, while I'm sitting at my house, I'm like, when the hell did I give you ribs? And I'm like. I spent like at least 30 minutes kind of thinking about like when the hell did I buy him meat to cook? And then it hit me.
I did that 2 years ago. I bought the Omaha beef.
Oh, you got the fancy Omaha steak stuff.
It's Omaha
Is that what you're
steaks,
saying?
yeah. And I was like 2-3 years ago, and I remember going back home like months after everything. I go open the fridge or the freezer. I'm like, why is it still in here? He goes, beef will last forever. I'm like, I bought this for you. He goes, you look in this, and I open up the chest freezer. I'm like, well, in case of a zombie apocalypse, we're good for food for 9 months at my dad's house. So yeah, it's just steaks galore, ribs galore, chicken. Where's my Omaha stuff? Up there. I was like, thanks, Dad. Great.
It's the reserve of the reserve. Don't worry about it.
but yeah, it family sometimes. Family.
I saw that.
And they go, what about you? Everything's ate. You don't spare? Nope.
That's how I am.
If I don't eat it now, it's going to go bad. Nope.
No, I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm the same way as you. That's how I am. I run through it. I actually, when I go grocery shopping, I'm like, I'm running low on like everything. And I mean, like, we're talking like, if the protein's gone from the freezer too, then yeah, we're in trouble. We're running out of like everything.
Yes.
I'm hunting down condiments for snacks. That's a problem. Ketchup's looking mighty tasty right now. Let me get
Inflation bad this day, man. I can't even get Heinz ketchup now. I'm getting these little fancy ketchups from Hot Wok, China restaurant. But yeah.
You got Taco Bell seasoning packets?
Yeah.
Can you give me like that whole box? just gotta take all of it.
Let's let these guys go.
I'm out.
We can go out.
All right. Okay. For more hijinks and fun, catch us, of course, on our next episode for NAL Game Day Week 7 edition, as it's going to be a lot more of a hectic week. Yes, we will have more than one game this week. Don't worry. You'll get more of that fun arena football action this coming weekend, and we'll bring all the hijinks and things for you in a show that I think will drop a little earlier this time, of course, but you'll still get to watch it before the game on Friday night. So stay tuned for that. Also, of course, follow us at InWallsPod on your favorite social medias, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, you name it. We're on it. Check us out. Getting a lot of new Twitter followers as of late. I'm loving the traction we got going so far. It's been nice. Been really nice. And hey, if you haven't done it already, follow the NAL social accounts. Again, we've been giving praise lately. They've been cranking up those social media postings. You might want to keep track now. It's been a lot better so far through 6 weeks of the season, and it's only going to get better from what we're able to tell behind the scenes. So stay tuned to that very much as soon as possible. We'll catch you later this week for NAL Game Day Week 7 edition. See you on the other side, everyone.
Dancing in the moonlight, everybody's feeling warm and bright. It's such a fun and exercise. Everybody.
Covering all your favorite parts of the 50-yard fight. This is the Inside the Walls podcast with Zach Kyleman and Jim